In the heart of a village, there lived a woman named Alina, the daughter of Mireia. Lara was married to two husbands named Liren and Kale. This is how it all started. Many, many years ago when Alina was just a young lady. She was in love with a young man named Darren. Darren loved her dearly too. Their love was so strong that everyone in the village envied them. However, there was a problem that threatened to prove the very bond of this beautiful love. While Alina was one of the most beautiful young ladies in the village, Darren was just a poor farmer. Parts of men, wealthy and influential, would come to Alina's compound with gifts, seeking the hand of beautiful Alina. However, Lara was not moved by their money or gifts. She declared that Darren was the only man that she loved and would marry. And so Alina and Darren got married, and Alina moved into Darren's humble home. They started living together as husband and wife. 3 years into their marriage, Alina and Darren already had a son named Jiro, and Alina was pregnant with their second child. Fortunes were not kind to them, as Darren's crops failed with each passing day. It got so bad that they could hardly have one proper meal a day. Alina worked tirelessly on the farm, supporting her husband, but nothing changed. Her friends soon began to mock her for rejecting all the wealthy men in the village to marry poor Darren. One day, when Alina was 6 months pregnant with their second child, Darren made a decision that would change the course of their lives forever. Darren decided to go to the city in search of better opportunities. He promised to come back for her and the children once he secured a job in the city. Alina was heartbroken, but she had no other option other than to agree. Darren left his wife Alina and his son to go in search of a better life for all of them. In Darren's absence, Alina gave birth to a beautiful baby girl and named her Sia. With Darren gone, his uncle claimed his land, and Alina and the kids were left with nothing. One of Alina's friends, Nia, introduced her to a fish business, so Alina started working with the fishermen at the river. She would help them to gather the fish, and at the end of the day, she would be given a basket of fish. Alina would sell her basket of fish later in the market and use the money to buy food for her children. The fish business was not enough, but at least Alina and her children always had food to eat. 2 years passed, and Alina did not hear from her husband, Darren. Despite having 2 kids, Alina still had her beauty. Men began to flock around her again, but she dismissed all of them, telling them that she was waiting for her husband, Darren. Time passed again without a sign of Darren. Alina grew more worried with each passing day that Darren failed to return or communicate with her. One day, Alina met a very rich man who came into the village from the city. The rich man's name was Elan. He fell for Alina immediately he set his eyes on her. However, like all the others, Alina told him that she was waiting for her husband. Unlike the other men, Elan was moved by Alina's plight. He could not bear to see such a beautiful woman suffering so much, even if she would not marry him. Elan was determined to take care of Alina and her children. He told her that he did not care if she marries him or not. Elan established a fabric business in the village for Alina. He enrolled her children in good schools, renovated their house, and provided for their every need. Then a year of Elan coming into their lives, Alina began to change. She rose to become the biggest fabric seller in the village. In the midst of all of this, Alina had yet to hear from Darren. It had been 5 years since he left for the city in search of better opportunities, and not once had Alina heard from him since he left. Alina was beginning to lose faith that Darren would ever return to her and their children. Elan had been very good to them, so after a long thought, Alina finally agreed to marry Elan. They got married in a grand marriage ceremony in the village, and Elan was the happiest man that day. After their marriage, Elan asked Alina to move into his house in the village, but Alina asked to remain in Darren's house, which Elan had renovated for them. Finally, it was the only thing her children had in connection to their father. Elan accepted Alina's children as his own, and took care of them as his own. 3 months after Alina's marriage to Elan, she became pregnant, and Elan was very happy, and so they continued to live in peace and harmony. One day when Alina's pregnancy was almost due, about 8 months in, Alina was sitting in the sitting room, leaning her head on Elan's chest when they heard a loud knock. Alina was shocked at the sight before her. It was Darren, her first husband. He was looking ragged, as if he had been dragged out of the wilderness. Darren, on the other hand, was also surprised to see Alina pregnant. It had been years since he left. How could his wife be pregnant? He said he was more shocked when he saw Elan seated, relaxed in his house before Darren could open his mouth. Alina broke down in tears. "You left me. For years I didn't hear a word from you," she cried. Darren explained to her that he was busy working to get a good livelihood and had actually made some good money. Unfortunately, on his way back, he was attacked by robbers, and they took all the money and left him with nothing. So after years, he returned with nothing. Alina took Darren through everything she and the children went through when he was away. How Elan helped them. She told him that she gave up on waiting for him. so she married Ilan, who was the only one genuinely there for her. Darren stood there, dumbfounded, not knowing what to do or say. In their village, no woman had ever married two men. Neither had anyone ever heard of such. But here was Alina with her two legally married husbands. She had only one option, to divorce one of them, which was Ilan, the kind man who had been good to her and the children, or Darren, her first love, and they had two children together. With heartbreaking comments, she could not divorce either and leave one on the streets with nothing. So, Alina made a difficult decision to stay married to both husbands. The men agreed as they both loved Alina deeply and wanted her to be happy. From that day on, Alina lived with her two husbands under one roof. At first, it was very awkward and tense between Darren and Ilan, but over time they overcame their initial discomfort and lived as brothers for the sake of Alina and the children. Ilan and Darren worked together to provide for the family. Alina gave birth to one more child, a son named Miro, and it was unclear which of the two men was the father, but it didn't matter, as both Ilan and Darren treated all four children equally as their own. The family faced stigma and criticism from others in the village for their uncommon living situation, but Alina did not care. As long as her children were loved and provided for, her two husbands stood by her side, supporting and defending her choice. In time, the people of the village came to respect them. Alina was admired for her bravery in breaking societal norms for the well-being of herself and her children. Darren and Ilan were praised for setting aside ego and jealousy to prioritize their family. When Alina grew old and passed away, both Darren and Ilan were utterly devastated at the loss of their beloved wife. They continued living together like brothers, caring for Alina's children and grandchildren until the end of their days. Alina's life was one of hardship and sacrifice, but also immense love and loyalty. Her journey challenged traditions and showed that love and family can overcome all barriers. Many years after Alina's death, the story of the brave woman who married two husbands continued to be told across the village and surrounding villages. Parents would gather their children and recount the incredible tale as an example of Alina's love for her family. Thank you for reading.